Hey, what's going on, guys? From Gaming here, back in another video. Today's episode, we're taking a look at Preservation Evoker for Mythic Plus in Season 2 of The War Within. If you guys want to follow along with the video, there will be a link in the description that will take you right out to this guide, and you can kind of scroll through here as we kind of talk through some of this stuff. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. So taking a look at Archon, we can take a look at Preservation Evoker here, and we can see that they are towards the bottom of the tier list, just above Holy Priest here. And Preservation Evoker is actually one of the least played healers. It looks like it actually is the least played healer in the game. And we'll kind of cover that here in just a second when we go into the pros and cons. But not a lot of people play it. It probably has something to do as well with this is the newest healer. You know, this was released back in Dragonflight. It just doesn't quite have the longevity of some of the other healers. Taking a look at the charts here, we can sort by HPS and DPS. We can see if we sort by HPS, they are one of the lower HPS healers, but they're right here, you know, with like Resto Druid and Mistweaver. They're not much lower than the others. So if you do pick up Preservation Evoker, you're going to be able to heal just by any content that you want. And they're going into DPS here. You can see that they are the second highest in terms of DPS. And the highest key done on them so far is a 19. Going back into the guide, taking a look at the pros and cons. You know, one of the great things about Preservation Evoker is their strong externals. So we do have Rewind here, and this is going to heal based off damage taken. Now, one of the cool things about Preservation Evoker is they have a lot of healing spells that kind of are based off of a percentage, meaning that they are stronger and stronger the higher in keys that you go. Another really strong cooldown that we have is our Stasis here, 1.5 minute cooldown. Causes your next 3 helpful spells to be duplicated and stored in a time lock, and you may reactivate Stasis anytime within 30 seconds to quickly unleash their magic. So you could store some of your strong cooldowns in Stasis, press it again, and then send them out. There are some special combos with this that we'll cover a little bit later in the guide, but just know that this will be one of your stronger cooldowns. We have really good burst healing. I would say overall, Preservation Evoker has some of the best burst healing. You know, as long as your cooldowns are up, it's going to be hard for people to die. The problem with Preservation Evoker kind of stems in when cooldowns are ticking. In my opinion, they don't have quite the sustained healing as a lot of the other healers. So good burst healing, good cooldowns, good defensives. You know, most of the buttons that you press do feel very impactful. We're also a very immobile healer as well. You know, with things like our glide, along with our hover. We can also take talents like Tailwind that's going to increase your movement speed when you do hover. And of course, we do bring Lust group utility with our Fury of the Aspects here. Now, some of the cons, we are a very low range healer, and a lot of our healing spells are kind of like targeted ground effects. So it's going to require the group to be stacked in front of you, which is kind of like what we're talking about on Archon, why a lot of people don't play them, is because you have to run with melee compositions. Now, you don't have to. You can run it with ranged, but it's going to make your life a lot easier if people are very close to the tank and everybody's grouped. And you'll notice that if you do have a couple people standing off to the side, like a mage or a hunter or something, people who like to stand at max range, it's just going to make your life a little bit harder. So, you know, that's one of the great things about playing healer, is you can run your own keys, form your own groups, and you can pick those melee compositions. And since you bring Lust, you don't have to bring a mage for the Lust, right? You don't have to bring a shaman or, you know, something like a hunter, for example. You know, we're set up to where we don't have to bring some of these ranged specs for Lust because we bring it. So, pretty major con here, but don't let this scare you away from playing Preservation Evoker. It doesn't become as big of a deal until you're pushing past like 3K. And then we kind of work off a combo system, which can feel a little bit awkward to new healers. You have to use your buttons in a very specific way. It's not something like Restoration Shaman where you can just kind of healing surge and chain heal your way out of things. Now this is in my opinion, one of the more complex healers. Okay, hopefully I did not scare you away from playing Pres Evoker. If you're still with us here, we'll scroll down to the talents and you come down to the talent calculator here. And you can just press this and it will take you out to, you can control left click it and it'll take you out to our talent link. So here we are, and we are running the Chrono Warden tree over the Flame Shaper. It's been this way for pretty much all of the War Within for Mythic Plus. So let's go ahead and talk about Echo over here in the Preservation tree, because Echo is typically one of those spells that's a little bit confusing. So let's just read it out first. So wrap an ally with temporal energy, healing them for spell power, and cause your next healing spell to cast an additional time on that ally at 70% normal healing. So you can use this to duplicate your healing. Now, this does cost a couple of essence, but for the most part, playing Pres Evoker, you're not going to be too starved for essence. And we'll talk about the use case of this a little bit more later, but this to me was one of the more confusing spells when I started playing Pres Evoker, because it's like, when do you use this? There's so many different combos you can do with Pres Evoker, and I will take some of the confusion out of it for you. We will talk about combos and stuff later in the guide, but really for the most part, just send out your Echo. Don't get too confused by it. Just send it out and just start duplicating some of your healing. So this is one spell that you just send out. Another spell that I want to talk about that you just kind of send out is your Reversion. 9-second cooldown, and this is going to be a huge portion of your healing. So reverse an ally's healing them for X amount of spell power over 12 seconds. Now you can see in the middle here, Golden Hour. This is a talent that we're taking, and this will heal for 15% of damage taken in the last 5 seconds. And this is one of the things that make Preservation Evoker strong, especially in high keys with the damage spikes, because it's based on a percentage. So that Golden Hour talent that we were talking about is directly below it here. So that gives a little bit of an instant heal from our Reversion. And these are two spells, again, that you just want to send out. Reversion and Echo. Just send them out. Don't worry about it too much. Really, you want to pair Echo with the Reversion in a lot of cases. That's a lot of your healing. So you can Echo and then Reversion, and basically 2 Reversions out on the target. Okay, let's go over here to the left. We also have our Dream Breath here, and this is based on like a charge system. So it's a 30-second cooldown, and the longer that you heal it, the more burst heal that you get. The less that you heal it, the more of the heal over time effect that you get. So we can also pair our Dream Breath with something called Call of Ysera. So Verdant Embrace increases the healing of your next Dream Breath by 40% or your next Living Flame by 100%. So if we use a spell called Verdant Embrace, which we've not covered yet, this will increase the healing of our Dream Breath by 40%. So what the heck is Verdant Embrace? It's over here on the left. So fly to an ally and heal them for X amount of heal power, or heal yourself for the same amount. Now, a lot of times this spell can get you into trouble because you fly to an ally, and an ally could be standing in a swirly, whatever. You're going to kill yourself with this spell a lot of the time. So what I like to do is this is where I like to have a solid use case for Echo. And typically, I only Verdant Embrace myself. If I want to Verdant Embrace an ally, I will Echo them and then just Verdant Embrace myself and get some of that healing duplicated on my ally. Now, you can Verdant Embrace just directly an ally, but you better be careful and you better know where they're standing before you press it. So we covered some core spells already. Let's go ahead and go down to the left-hand side of the tree here. So we also have something called temporal compression. So one of the problems with Dream Breath and Spirit Bloom, which we've not covered yet, is these are charged-based heals, and they take a long time to charge up. But if you're running temporal compression, every time we cast one of our bronze spells, we're going to be able to empower or reduce the cast time of our empowered spells. And this is based, again, on a charge stacking system at 10% per stack. So this is something that you can track, and it's going to make your Dream Breath feel a lot more fluent. So let's quickly talk about that. What is a bronze spell? So a bronze spell is going to be something like Reversion, or something like your Temporal Anomaly, and even something like your Echo. So this is part of the reason that I said that you just want to send out your Reversion. You just want to send out your Echoes because you want to build these charges of temporal compression. Now, it's not something that you're playing around too much, but just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Building stacks of this quickly and efficiently is going to make it feel more fluid. So let's go directly below this to Spirit Bloom. This is like your big AoE heal, so very similar to Dream Breath. You're typically using Dream Breath, though, for the hot effect, and you're typically using Spirit Bloom for that big AoE heal. So the longer we hold this down, the more allies that it heals. And by having high stacks of temporal compression, which we talked about, you could channel Dream Breath and Spirit Bloom very quickly. Now, another very strong cooldown that we have is our Emerald Communion here. So commune with the Emerald Dream, restoring 20% health and 2% mana every 1 second for 5 seconds. Then overhealing is transferred to an injured ally. Now, you can also move. If you're taking Dreamwalker talent, you can cast this while moving. highly recommend to take this. This is going to make this ability feel much more better to press. And yeah, just press this when you need a lot of healing. Try to pair it up with a large boss mechanic, something like that. Let's go ahead and jump to the right-hand side of the tree, and let's talk about we kind of talked about rewind already, and the pros and cons. You're going to use this to rewind damage. And again, this scales based off of a percentage of damage taken. So another very, very strong cooldown. And if you need burst healing, I would rely on rewind versus Emerald Communion. Emerald Communion, I'd like to plan it out for, I know the damage is coming, I want to offset it. And then rewind if I need that emergency healing. Directly below that, we have our time dilation. You can use this on a tank if like a tank buster or something's coming out. And this just goes back into Preservation Evoker has really, really strong cooldowns, really strong externals. Everything that we talked about so far, with our Dream Breath, with our Spirit Bloom, Emerald Communion, Rewind, Time Dilation, it's 5 really strong cooldowns. We haven't talked about Stasis yet. So Preservation Evoker just has a tool for just about anything, it feels like. So Time Dilation, pair it with a Tank Buster. We also have our Temporal Anomaly. And this is typically something that you just want to send out as well. I think of it very similar to an echo or a reversion. So you send out Temporal Anomaly, and this will actually put a reversion on all the targets that it hits. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. It puts an echo on all the targets that you hit. So that's from a Resonating Sphere here. So you throw it out, everybody in front of you, they get hit by it, they get the echo, and then you can reversion, and you can put a hot effect essentially on all your allies. So a very strong, whenever this comes off cooldown, press it, get those echoes out. It's going to help your healing. Okay, I just want to talk about a couple more things on the Prez tree, then we'll go to Chrono Warden. We're running Essence Burst right here in the very center of the tree. So Living Flame has a 20% chance, and Reversion has a 50% chance to make your next Essence ability free. So your Dream Breath could be free if Essence Burst procs. And this actually stacks twice if you're taking Essence Attunement. So this is another reason that I say just send Reversion on cooldowns, because you're trying to proc these Essence Bursts. So we'll talk about Living Flame here in a minute. Let's go ahead and go down to our Stasis now. So we talked a little bit earlier about what this was. Causes your next 3 helpful spells to be duplicated and stored in a time lock. So basically you press Stasis, then you could go in here and you could press, just for example, Dream Breath, Spirit Bloom, and then maybe your Temporal Anomaly. And all 3 of those spells get stored into this time lock. So when you press Stasis again, it's going to cast all 3 of these at once. Now, this of course doesn't work, unfortunately, with something like Emerald Communion. It only works with empowered or direct healing spells. But what we just talked about, Dream Breath, Spirit Bloom, Temporal Anomaly, that's called the green combo. And those would be the 3 spells that I would recommend that you use Stasis with. So Temporal Anomaly first, Dream Breath, Spirit Bloom. So let's read Chrono Flame out here under the Chrono Warden tree. So Living Flame's enhanced with Bronze Magic, repeating 15% of the damage or healing you dealt to the target in the last 5 seconds as Arcane. So this basically gives us a beefed up Living Flame. And then down here at the very bottom, we have After Image. So Empower spells send up to 3 Chrono Flames to your targets. So that Dream Breath that we talked about, that Spirit Bloom, they're going to send out these Chrono Flames that will do additional healing. So another very strong cooldown that we've not talked about yet is over here in the middle of the tree are Tip the Scales. And this is on a 2-minute cooldown. The reason I talk about this now is because the Chrono Warden tree has a lot of scaling with it. So let's just read this out. Compress time to make your next empowered spell cast instantly at its maximum empower level. So you can press this and go into an instant Dream Breath that's a max power. Now what makes this spell so strong is not necessarily Tip the Scales itself. It's really Temporal Burst here. And really Tip the Scales turns into a mini lust for you. And just read it out. Tip the Scales overloads you with temporal energy, increasing your haste, movement speed, and cooldown recovery rate by 30%, decreasing over 30 seconds. Now, not only that, if we go down a note here, casting an Empower spell during Temporal Burst causes an ally to gain a Thread of Fate for 10 seconds, granting them a chance to echo their damage or healing spells, dealing 15% of the amount again. So it almost works as a very mini sort of lust as well for an ally, kind of duplicating some of their damage. So just know that Tip the Scales is a extremely strong cooldown, and you should use it as such. It's a lot stronger than it looks. Another cooldown or another ability I guess I would talk about is our golden opportunity. Going back to Echo, again, this is another reason, just kind of solidifies my point. You just want to send Echo out when you can, because casting Echo has a 20% chance to cause your next Echo to be 100% more effective. So the more Echoes that we send out, essentially the stronger that they are. Okay, there's other stuff that I could talk about. Honestly, Evoker probably has one of the most interesting talent trees to me. There's a lot of cool stuff in here, but for now, let's just go ahead and go into the priority. Okay, so looking at this, I think I've covered everything. The only thing I did not cover is our Life Spark and Fire Breath. Fire Breath, there's nothing crazy to it. It's basically just a beefed up Dream Breath. Just think the opposite of Dream Breath. Dream Breath heals, Fire Breath does damage. We are taking a talent called Leaping Flames. So Fire Breath causes your next living flame to strike one additional target per empower level. So after you Fire Breath, you just want to make sure that you're casting Living Flame afterwards. So that's where that comes in. And then we also have Life Spark here. This is another thing that you want to be tracking somehow. Reversion Healing has a chance to cause your next Living Flame to instantly cast and deal 50% increased healing or damage. So this is a great way to snipe health pools. Stacks up to 2 charges. You want to use these charges. Okay, let's get into everything else now. So, rotation priority, we want to cast Temporal Anomaly on pool, followed by a Reversion. And again, the reason we want to do this is because Temporal Anomaly is going to apply an Echo to all of our targets that we can then Reversion on top of. And whoever's taking heavy damage is who we want to follow that Reversion up on. And everybody else will get 1 stack of Reversion through Echo. Now, this will proc your Life Spark that we just talked about. So we're going to make sure that we are following that up with a Living Flame on whoever needs healing. And this is really your main priority, right? Is sending out Reversions and sending out those Echoes that we talked about before. If you take anything from this guide, it's send your Echoes and send your Reversion. Do not worry too much about doing fancy combos with them. Just get them out. Next priority is we want to get our dots ticking. So Fire Breath, we want to cast that. And then we also want to get our Dream Breath out so we can get that heal over time effect ticking. Now, based on how far up the empower level you took your Fire Breath, you will get more Living Flames that will go out. So make sure that every Fire Breath, you're following that up with a Living Flame, either to heal or do damage. And we did talk about earlier about Dream Breath and Verdant Embrace and that combo with Call of Ysera. So you want to make sure that you are Verdant Embracing before you Dream Breath to get that buff to our Dream Breath from Verdant Embrace. Now, you can Echo your Dream Breath, and that will give you basically 2 hots ticking on your Dream Breath. And this is another pretty good combo too. So the Temporal Anomaly with Reversion combo that we talked about is for light damage. If there's more like medium to heavy damage coming out, you can Temporal Anomaly into a Dream Breath, and that will actually give you 2 hot effects from Dream Breath ticking. So here's just a quick example of what that looks like, right? We can Temporal Anomaly into a 1 stack of Dream Breath, and you can see each target here now has 2 stacks of Dream Breath ticking on them. Next priority is going to be your Spirit Bloom. If the party takes, big damage, the longer we charge this, the more targets that are healed. From here, we can use Verdant Embrace. Again, try to use Verdant Embrace on yourself and not an ally. Echo an ally and Verdant Embrace yourself, because you're going to fly to an ally and probably kill yourself. So just be very careful with that. From here, again, we're just sending out Reversions. We're sending out Echoes. And then down here at the bottom, we're just going to be casting our Living Flame if there's nothing else to press, essentially. And that's going to be most of like your general priority, right? You can use Rewind. If you just skip to this section, we talked way more about cooldowns in like the gameplay section. I highly recommend in this video to go back and watch that if you did skip over. We talk about using Stasis, how to use that combo. We also talked about Tip the Scales and how that's a really strong cooldown for us as well. So I recommend going back and watching that. But, down here at past 8 would be just, use your cooldowns as needed. There really is no priority for cooldowns. It's just whenever you need them. All right, guys, we're going to call it here. If the video was helpful in any sort of way, we do have a little Patreon page if you want to support the channel. No pressure at all. Again, even just a like, comment, subscribe, anything like that helps grow our channel and helps push us up in the algorithm. So regardless, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.